Hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Thursday, the 9th day of March, 2023. I hope you've had a good week so far. I have up on the screen here what the runes and the cards were for Monday, just in case. Last week, the two readings seemed to dovetail together, so when that starts, it kind of goes for a while. So just in case, it's going to do that again today. I've got those up. We had Hagalaz, Kata Draconis for the runes, and the Ten of Pentacles, Page of Swords, and the Knight of Pentacles for the reading on Monday. But we'll see what we have. I already have the rune here drawn. It's Rado. I started talking about that, and then my husband's headphones called me. So it's like, what? I thought there was an emergency, so I'm like all freaked out. But no, it was just one of those things. He was trying to turn the headphones off, and apparently there's something about that process. It's happened to me with our next door neighbor where I called him and I didn't know it. And he called me back. He says, "What'd you want?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Well, you called me and you weren't there. So anyway, so it happens with this particular. We had the same type of. We bought two, so we have the same type of headphones, and I don't use mine anymore because of that. So anyway, he's put his in the living room now. He's not going to use them anymore here today. Well, at least while I'm on the doing the video. But anyway, I started out with the rune Rado. That's all as far as I got. Rado is integration. It's rider and horse. When you well, it means horse actually, but when you think about rider and horse, you think about the integrated motion between the two of them. The horse knows instinctively, just a slight touch, a slight pressure of the knee, the horse knows where the horse needs to go. And so it's that almost innate, intuitive type of integration that we share with one another that Rado is really talking about. It's momentum. It's it's just that movement forward together. It's harmony. But when you look at the structure of Rado, and I'll just do this very quickly if I can find a post-it note to do this with. I'll explode out the rune for you so you can see what I'm talking about. You're looking at a very high level of awareness with this. Here's Rado. Looks like the letter R. But what you see with Rado is you see Kenaz forward and reversed. One time is a little bit skewed. So that's the torch or the light of spirit. This is the will. This is the intentional will to go forward together, to go in harmony and concert together. You also see Vunyo, which is fellowship. Again, that's that integration with people. You also see Laguz, which is flow. And then you see Isa, which is alignment. So when we think of the runes in the same manner as we think of the major arcana, which is all soul archetype stuff, this is the truth of who we are together. Rado's a very powerful integrative rune, a bind rune in and of itself, really. When you look at all of the runes that comprise this, you're really looking at how are we integrating with others on a level that is beyond the ego, to where we understand that fundamental alignment and integration that we actually have with one another on the soul level. And since that's all this is just souls having an experience that they then take back to, the collective consciousness or to source presence or whatever you want to call it, to the creator, then we couldn't be separate even if we wanted to be. And although it sure seems like people want to be separate now, you want to have the us versus them. You've got media doing it, reinforcing it. You've got members of Congress or politicians or corporations emphasizing the separation, catering to it, invoking it, creating more of it. But the fact is, the soul is like, well, go ahead, do what you want. But the truth is, we're all one. And Rado really is about that. It's the fundamental integration that you have with other people. And then it's also the integration between the soul and the ego, the soul and the personality, the soul and the body. And how it's like if you aren't taking care of yourself, if you're eating a bunch of junk food, if you're drinking a bunch of alcohol, if you're doing all the things that can harm your body, then you're not integrating well on your own. So this can actually be looked at in two ways, either the integration we share with one another or the integration we have within. But let's take a look at the Geomancy rune here and see what it's going to be. I'm going to throw down the 4 elemental Geomancy runes. I've got a single dot, so an active principle for fire, whereas air, the same for air. I've got a dual, so a passive influence for water, and then a single dot or an active influence for earth. So we're looking at the rune Pur. You got Pur and Puella. One's little boy energy, one's little girl energy. But Pur is the little boy energy. It's the lack of impulse control. It's, well, I mean, I raised 2 boys, and I have 1 granddaughter and 2 grandsons, and we got the most recent pictures. This is an example of Pur energy. There were 2 pictures, one of the 14-month-old with looks like chocolate all over his face, some on his hand. He's standing in the kitchen next to a cupboard. And then the next one is the 2 of them, and he's kind of looking around. Just you can see one of his eyes. He's behind his brother, who's 3. And the 3-year-old is painting the cupboard doors brown with his hands. And so I said to my son, I texted back, I said, is that chocolate, or is that, or paint, or what's going on? Apparently it was Nutella. So I don't know how this happened. I've not gotten any, real description of that. But I mean, hands down, it's the most adorable example of Pur, for where you have little boys that are just, this is what they do, and now the older one has the younger one to teach. So they're like brothers in crime, And so, I mean, just the chocolate all over the 14-month-old's face was just priceless. And there's the older one, and I don't see his face in it, but he's painting. The whole, it's like a full paint job. There's no cupboard space anywhere. You don't see it. It's all brown, and that's Pur. That's a scattered little boy energy, where they're here, there, and everything. They want to know what this feels like. They want to know what this tastes like. They want to know, how can I paint with it? We used to buy little learning toys at Christmas time or birthdays or what have you, and their father, who's my youngest, would say, well, he'd just go and take it apart. And we'd be like, well, what'd you do that for? We just bought it, Well, I needed to know what was inside of it. Well, he's a computer engineer now. He has a degree in computer engineering and a full minor in computer science. So, definitely he has to know what's going on in things. But, so it's kind of fun to watch him go through this, with his children. But anyway, that's Pur energy. So it's not like it's Rubius energy, where you're looking at the same sort of thing on an adult level. With Pur, this is just, some lack of impulse control. So where does your lack of impulse control take you? Are you going to be able to integrate well with other people today, or are you going to have difficulty with that? But, there's a level of it can be serious, but depends on what the little boy does, or the 2 little boys do together when mom and dad aren't looking, because it happens very quickly. And I would venture to guess the youngest one's going to be like the oldest one. The oldest one is just like my son, his father, who was very quiet about things. So it's like when you don't hear them, it's like, okay, oh Lord, what have they done? It's that sort of thing. And so it's just kind of like mom and dad, get to watch, the son go through what they went through with him and with his own children. Is, and if you're a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So they're quick and they're there, and then you're like, oh my God. But in this day and age with phones, you can take a picture of it and send it to grandma and grandpa and brighten their day immeasurably. My husband, he'll just start laughing, and I know what he's laughing about. It's those two. But you see, the youngest is getting older now, and he's able to participate with his brother, which is frightening. But that's poor energy, little boy energy. That's just a lack of impulse control. They just do what they want to do because they're so curious, and they have to know. They need to know. And it can take you off it can interrupt your momentum. It can take you off your path. It can do all kinds of things. Well, let's take a look at the small cards and see what this has to do with the details of our day. We have again, we have the Page of Swords again today. Basically what we're looking at here, so there is a connection possibly between Monday and today. Instead of the Knight of Pentacles, we have the Queen of Pentacles. So that's interesting that we have that. And then we had the Ten of Pentacles on Monday. There we're really looking about endings, and we were looking about at the passage of legacy, and maybe moving into a new phase of life where you're able to take from the past, you're able to move forward. That was the issue with the Page of Swords. This one's at the end of today's reading. It starts out Nine of Pentacles, Queen of Pentacles, and the Page of Swords, whereas the Page of Swords was the center one. But here, he's leaning into the future just like he did on Monday, and with an eye toward the past, though. So there's a respect there. There's a looking toward the education he has received thus far, or the information he's received thus far. Pages are also not just about new beginnings and undeveloped potential, but they're also about maybe a new birth in a family, or the birth of something new. It's like with the rune Birkenau, it can mean the birth of somebody, it can mean fertility, but it could also mean the fertility of ideas, not just the birth of a child or something. It's bringing something to fruition. Well, with the page, you're really beginning that process, whereas with Birkenau, you would be bringing it to fruition. But you also have, instead of the watchfulness of the knight on Monday, you have the Queen of Pentacles here, which is very similar to the Nine. I mean, look at the quiet sense here of either a woman of means here, or she's also the queen. She could be the queen where she's just out and about on a Sunday in her garden getting ready for a falcon hunt. You see the falcon on her hand right there in the glove to protect her hand. She's protected by all of the abundance around her. There's some balance there with the two trees. You can see the castle off in the distance over here a little bit. So she's out away from things. You see this almost like it's a wall of grapes that are there, and grapes signify abundance, as do all the coins that are all over the ground there, or up against the wall, maybe you could say. They're not really on the ground. But she's got her hand on them. She's got... there's nine pentacles there, 9 coins. Again, 9 suggests endings. It also suggests completion, also generosity and spirituality. 9 could mean the spiritual messenger. And then there's the fact that I want this. I want what she's wearing. I just think it's awesome. But then I like stuff like that. But I think that from Monday's reading, if we were moving forward with an eye toward the legacy and protecting what we have, protecting the future, with with the idea of integrated motion that overcomes a lack of impulse control. That sense of shared purpose, that sense of a shared path. It's almost like now we've done all those things that we did on Monday. We're heading in that direction, and now this is really showing the fruits of the labors. And I think it's emphasized by the receptive nature of the Queen of Pentacles and the woman here in the 9, receiving the benefit of that. Of applying the legacy, of applying what you've learned, letting go of the things that are no longer relevant, but taking with you the things that can actually help you apply yourself. With the Queen of Pentacles here, you have a very similar scene. Instead of standing up with the holding the falcon on one hand, here she's sitting down. And we're just going to assume that this is the same woman. She's sitting on her throne, again, out in maybe a garden area. She's very reflective. She's quiet. She's ambitious. She's trustworthy. She's the Earth Mother type. Very kind and compassionate to people in her life, to people in her kingdom. You see the... let me see what these are. These look like roses up above here. Just a little garland that's above her head. Maybe she's in a gazebo-like setting or something like that. And down here, you see a rabbit. Right down here, you can see the little brown bunny. But as you understand what your forward process is going to be that we learned on Monday, what that's going to look like, because we had the 10 of Pentacles where the older man, likely the king, is sitting there on his chair. He's got his dogs with him. All the abundance is evident around him. You see the 2 people in the archway. It sort of indicates going into a new phase. So it's really the transfer of legacy from the king, the older man, to the younger people. There's that sense of transfer of legacy there. And so with that knowledge, with that awareness, with that support from the older man, these 2 younger people are able to begin their life. Maybe there was a wedding, maybe they just have been married, and or maybe they're not. Maybe they're older and their kids are there and you just don't see them in the picture, but it's time for them to take the reins, for them to be the ones in charge almost. Of their own future, taking from the past what they need and what's going to benefit them moving forward. And the older man gives that willingly. It's just the natural progression of time, basically, where that sort of thing happens. In many respects, we're in that position with our children. They're both in their early 40s, and one has children, one does not, but they're both married, and they have a life that they've got going, that is progressing forward, and hopefully they feel that same sense of shared legacy that they're carrying forward. And when that happens, you have this sense of peace and security with the 9 of Pentacles and the Queen of Pentacles, where you're there ready to begin to give back to other people. So if, say, for example, I think I might have used this example in Mondays, I'm not sure, because I think did I start that one again too? Well, anyway, I think that it's like if you have a job and you're the supervisor or the leader of that particular section of a group of people. When you leave to go to something else or to retire or whatever, you leave a legacy behind you for others to follow or to use when they're determining their own path. Lots of ways to achieve the same thing, in other words. And so it's not that they reject what you said out of hand, but they keep it in mind and they use it to take themselves in their own positive direction. And that's the thing. Once you get that once you've established that for yourself, it's easier when you have to let that go and move on to something else, or to retire, and again moving into another phase of life, where you can then look back on your own life and feel a sense of security and peace, where you can go out into your garden and enjoy that, and the fruits of all your labors for your lifetime and are evident. And I mean, it kind of sounds idyllic, and I realize not everybody has that experience in life, but it's that sense of passage where you can feel good about what you left behind for others, whether they use it or not. You've still done that for somebody else. You thought about somebody other than just simply yourself in the process. And I think that when that happens, you discover that integration with other people that's on a very profound level, that you've experienced all along. But then when all is said and done, you see that manifested, and it's a wonderful feeling to be able to look at what your kids have done or are doing in their lives, and be proud of all the things, the new stuff they've generated, and anything that they remember. Well, I remember, Mom, you said this, or I remember, Dad, you said this to me one time, and that really helped me when it's that whole passage of that whole integrated motion, that whole the integration of family, that where you can have a positive effect on somebody else. And then when all is said and done, you have your peace and your security and the bonds of love. Pentacles, again, is just like with Monday, you're looking at the same elements here. You're looking at 2 cards of Pentacles, which means it's a dominance of the earth element, which is tradition and family, and you're just your physical life in form, your health, your body, your just everything you own. It's a very Othala type of an experience. Othala is the 24th rune of the Elder Futhark. And again, it embodies both the rune Ingus, which is a diamond, or it can be written as 2 X's. That's Inguaz. Just depends on the Futhark you're looking at. I like Ingus because it's easier to do bind runes with it. And then and down below you have an X, which is Gebo, but it's all Kenaz, focused either inward above it or outward below it. And it's that light of spirit, that light of the soul coming in and expressing itself and defining itself in this life as a soul with those qualities, of love and truth and honor and dignity, and experiencing things with a level of higher awareness, that where you're letting go of judgment and you're letting go of the expectations that other people need to behave a certain way for you to be happy. It's like, no, you're responsible for your happiness. You just be happy. It's a choice. You can simply, your natural state is love and joy and all of that when you're in the soul, but when it's just the soul. But when you come here, see, the ego gets involved, and now all of a sudden things get complicated. And I think that realistically, what I think the Nine of Pentacles and the Queen of Pentacles are trying to suggest here is things don't need to be that complicated. If you live in love, you live in truth, you live in unity, you live in that type of resonance, that type of higher resonance. You can't, the ego doesn't find purchase there to mess things up. And then, you can move on in your own life again to manifest whatever new ideas and new perceptions, new awarenesses you want to have. The swords is the air element, and so that's what it's talking about. It's talking about communication, interaction. Again, Rado is a very air type of a rune. Letting go of the lack of impulse control that takes you off the path, but at the same time, there's an element of newness there and discovery there as well. That the little boy energy has, or the little girl energy with Puella or Puea, however you want to pronounce it. That type of frenetic energy where you're looking around and you're making new discoveries, once you've passed on that legacy that we talked about on Monday, well, now you're ready to embark on your own new chapter in a lot of ways. Um, I think that I think it was useful with the Page of Swords, where you're the person, you're the young people in the Ten of Pentacles, where the older man has passed on that knowledge and now you're ready to take the reins. Well, now what does the dad do? What does he do? What does mom do? The grandparents, what do they do? Well, is life over? No, it's not. Trust me on that. But there needs to be a next phase. You just don't fade off into the distance somewhere, into the ether. There is a next phase of life. And so the peace and the harmony and the gentleness of both the nine and the queen, now it's time for that focus to shift into something new. Maybe you take up a new hobby, or maybe you start a new business, even though you're supposedly retired. Maybe you're not really ready to be retired. Maybe you have some kind of you join a group of some kind. Maybe you go take pottery, or you do things. You keep active. You keep learning new things. And that's the thing about the Page of Swords. It basically reminds us, is no matter how relaxing life might be, there's always something new to do, something new around the corner. So maybe the building of the legacy really isn't over yet, that we had on Monday with the Ten of Pentacles. Maybe there's more to pass on. Maybe in this case, you're passing it on to your grandchildren, maybe. So I think that I think the two readings do actually dovetail together. Obviously, I mean, you've got the same pentacles, having two cards of pentacles, and the Page of Swords, which is exactly what we have there on Monday. The transformation with Hagalaz, on Monday. Kata Draconis, meaning endings. I think that, or the use of karma, the use of past life experience or past experience to inform the present. It's almost like we see all of the components coming full circle and beginning again on their own, with either with Monday's reading and the younger persons, people involved, or the older people here embarking on something new. So I think that it's really the cycle continues. I think that it's eternal. And I think whether, you're talking about the soul's growth in this life or the soul's growth in other lives that the soul is living, I think it's all in service to higher learning and higher awareness, and coming to the realization that the pettiness of life can really prevent you from moving forward and passing that legacy on to your children or other people that, say at work or what have you, of what you know and what you've learned, and giving of that freely to other people to help them along their path of learning in this life. So think about that. Think about how that might manifest in your life. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It could just be a little bit of advice. If someone's struggling, they maybe you just say, well, I had the same thing happen, and this is what I did. I don't know if that'll work for you, but heck, it might be the thing they're looking for. So that's another, just a very minor way of transferring what your legacy, to someone else to help them out, and to keep that integration with people flowing forward in a way that's loving and kind and aware, and leaving room for the Nutella experiences in your life that my grandsons are experiencing, and I know that and I know their parents were probably, I know they didn't want to laugh in front of them, but I don't know how they couldn't. be like, oh my God, what have you done? But how do you not laugh, But it's that joy of discovery and the joy of having Nutella everywhere. I don't know. Maybe that's what the Page of Swords is telling us in both, to move forward, but at the same time, kind of pay attention to what was handed to you and what was given you from people who loved you. And, don't be afraid to be a child. Don't be afraid to express that youthful energy, no matter how old you are. It's always there, and the learning is always there. And hopefully, you know, you're finding ways to express that in your life, especially if you're someone who's my age or older, that you haven't forgotten how to learn something new and how to play and how to, seek out new things and make your life about that. So, well, that's interesting. Well, we'll see what happens Monday, I guess. Look for all the stuff to come out this week ahead, and or the week ahead, I guess. That's not this week ahead. It's the week ahead for next week. That's all written. It's been scheduled. I've already posted it, but it won't be up until the midnight hour on Sunday morning. Exploring Tarot is also up, as is the daily correspondences for next week. That's all in that little holding pattern to be published at that time. And check out my writing over there on Substack and Medium and Patreon. If you'd like to do that, that'd be great. And, have a good weekend. If you haven't clicked subscribed here yet, I'd love you to do that and come back. Join our little tarot and rune family as we explore how tarot and runes can sort of open our minds up to other ideas and other options, things we never thought about before, things we didn't consider before. Take care of yourself, take care of one another, and blessed be.